Brahmanda Purana, Part 5, Lalita Mahatmya, Chapter 31, Manifestation of Seven Chambers and the Daughters of Matanga. Agastya said, "What is this called Sri Pura?" There is a footnote which says, the present chapter deals with the construction of the capital of Sri Lalita and her consort Kameshwara, the trinity of gods, Brahma, Vishnu and Maheshwara, the sons of Lalita Devi, commissioned Vishwakarman and Maya, the architects of Devas and Asuras, to build the cities Sri Pura or Sri Nagari. Of what form and nature is it? By whom was it built at the outset formerly? Narrate everything to me. What is its extent? What is its color? Tell me. O Holy Lord, you alone are the veritable sun for drying up the mud of doubts. Hayagriva said, Lalita Parameshwari, who was born out of the great sacrificial fire, carried out the playful activity, viz. Of marriage with Kameshwara on being requested by Brahma and others. She secured the chariot Chakra Ratha, endowed with all the characteristics mentioned before, and defeated the Asura named Bhanda, who was thorn, a source of trouble for the whole world. Thereupon, Devas, beginning with Lord Mahendra, attained great satisfaction. They, therefore, were eager to build a splendid mansion for Kameshwara and Lalita, fully furnished with all the objects of daily utility and enjoyment. Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, the sons of Lalita Devi, invited Vishwakarman, the carpenter of the Devas, skilled in all mechanical arts and crafts, as well as Maya, the architect of the Asuras, who was a great expert in employing Maya. At the behest of Lalita, they received them duly and said, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, the authorized officials, said, O Vishwakarman, conversant with all arts and crafts, O Maya, of great prosperity, you both are well versed in all sciences of engineering and architecture. You are experts in the process of building up and creation. By mere conception and imagination, you both can evolve wonderful constructions of great artistry. Sri Nagaris should be built by you both for the sake of Lalita Devi, who is the great ocean of eternal wisdom. They should be embellished with different kinds of jewels. They must be in the center of the sacred spots of Shodashis and should be 16 in number. It will be there that Lalita Parameshwari, after dividing herself into 16 distinct forms for the sake of protecting the universe, will stay permanently. The footnote says the number 16 has a special significance in this Mahatmya. The letters of Lalita's full mantra are 16, so are her forms, and as shown below, the same number of sacred spots, 9 mountains on the earth plus 7 oceans, are the sacred sites for building Sri Nagaris. This is pleasing to us. It is pleasing to the gods too. It is also pleasing to all the worlds. Let it be. built under that name itself. After listening attentively to these words of Karana Devas, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, executive officials among gods in charge of specific activities such as creation, sustenance, etc. Vishwakarman and Maya bowed to them and spoke, "Let it be so." After bowing down once again, both of them asked the Karana Purushas in which sacred spots should the Srinagaris of great prosperity be built. On being asked thus, Brahma and others spoke to those artisans once again, assigning the divisions of the sacred spots in a befitting manner. Karana Purushas said, "The earthly terrestrial sacred spots are 9. The first one is on the top of Meru mountain, then on the Nishada mountain, on Mount Hemakuta, and on the Himalaya. The fifth one is on the Gandhamadana. The other 4 sacred spots are on the Nila, Mesha, Sringara or Shringa, and the great mountain Mahendra. These are known as the 9 terrestrial sacred spots. The aquatic sacred spots are declared as 7. They are in the 7 oceans, viz., the salt sea, the sea of sugarcane juice, the sea of liquor, the sea of ghee, the sea of curds, the sea of milk, and the 7th one, the sea of pure water. Thus, 9 great mountains have been mentioned before. Afterwards, 7 oceans have also been mentioned. Adding together, there are 16 sacred spots for building the Sri Pura of Amba. You are artisans and craftsmen skilled in erecting buildings of divine workmanship. In those sacred spots, you do build the divine mansions of Lalita of great prowess. The names of the mansions of Devi who killed the great Asuras shall be famous certainly by the names of the Nitya deities. That supreme deity by her Nitya form pervades Kala. The goddess controls the whole of the world by her power of subduing. She is the great queen of the Nitya deities. Hence, she is Nitya. There is no difference between them. Hence, the different cities are famous by the respective names of the Nityas, such as Kameshwari Puri, Bhagamala Puri, Nitya Klinna Puri, etc. These names are well known. Hence, both of you build the excellent city in accordance with the great principle of architecture, beginning on an auspicious and suitable day, on the day fitting with the initial letter of the name. On being told thus by Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, who were the leaders entrusted with the work of causation, that is, creation, sustenance, and annihilation, both of them built Sri Puris in the different sacred spots. Further, I shall mention the extent of Sri Pura and the deities presiding over the cities. Listen attentively, O husband of Lopamudra. The mountain Meru is the support of everything. The footnote says the verses 28 FF describes Sri Pura on mountain Meru, though Pamirs are identified with Meru. The mountain described here is fictitious. This Sri Pura had 7 ramparts and enclosures. The walls were made of iron, bronze, lead, copper, silver, gold, and within each enclosure the garden of heavenly trees, viz. Kalpa, Santana, Harichandana, Mandara, Parijata, etc. The palace of Mantrini had a park of Kadamba trees. The structure, for example, Gopuras, show that the Mahatmya was composed by a South Indian. Constant references to Kanchi, Kamakoshta, etc. confirms this theory. It is many yojanas in height. Its body passes through all the 14 worlds. It has 4 peaks in the east, in southwest, in northwest, and in the middle. Their height is being mentioned. The 3 peaks mentioned in the beginning are each 100 yojanas in height. There are 3 lokas, worlds there. They are Brahmaloka, Vishnuloka, and Shivaloka. I shall narrate how the abodes are arranged in these worlds on another occasion. Listen to the extent and height of the peak in the middle. It is 400 yojanas in height and extent. It was on that great peak that Sri Pura was built by the artisans. O pot-born sage, it extended to 400 yojanas. The various divisions therein are being pointed out to you severally. It is said that the first outermost fort wall was built of iron. Its circumference was 1,016 yojanas. It had gateways in the 4 directions. Its height was 4 yojanas. The girth of the root of the chamber, that is, at the bottom, was, O sage who drank the ocean, 10,000 yojanas. 2 kroshas beneath the top, separate windows were made. The height of the doorway of the chamber was a yojana. In every gateway there were 2 door panels, each half a gavyuti wide, that is 1 krosha. Every door frame was a yojana in height and was made of iron. The bar for fastening the 2 door panels was half a krosha long. Thus everything was the same in all the 4 doorways. I shall mention the situation regarding the principal gate Gopura, O pot-born sage. Partially defective text at the foot of the enclosure mentioned before. A distance of a yojana is left in the middle. On either side 2 yojanas are taken and the whole edifice is erected. The width is also the same with the doorway in the middle. 2 yojanas on either side and 1 yojana of the enclosure in the middle. Together, O sage, the extent comes to 5 yojanas. The 2 sides, side domes, etc. were 2.5 kroshas wide. Each together, the width comes to 5 yojanas or kroshas. It was thus, O sage, that the Gopura ornamental gateway was built. Hence, the total girth at the bottom of the Gopura was 20 yojanas, that is, a square of sides, each 5 yojanas in length. The higher we go up the Gopura, the girth decreases. The height of the Gopura is mentioned as 25 yojanas. At intervals of a yojana each there were beautiful doorways with doors. The stories were also as many. The higher one ascended, the narrower they became. The extent of the top of Gopura was 1 yojana. The length also was the same, but 3 crowns, dome-like structure, were fixed there. The extent of the dome, O pot-born sage, was a krosha. The height of each crown was 2 kroshas. The tapering feature, O sage, was the same as in the case of Gopura. The space within the crown or between two crowns was measured as half a crosha. On the gopura of the southern gateway, the crowns were arranged from west to east. On the gopura of the western gateway, the crowns were arranged from south to north. It is said that the crowns on the northern gateway were arranged as in the case of the southern gateway. The arrangement of the crowns on the eastern gateway was the same as in the case of the eastern gateway. Within the enclosure or chamber named Kala Yasa, that is, one made of iron at a distance of 7 yojanas, was the arrangement of gopuras, etc., was in the same way as before. The girth of the enclosure at the bottom is described as before. This enclosure of bronze too had doorways in the east and other quarters. There were gopuras on every gateway with the characteristic features of steps or stories. The annular space between the iron enclosure and the bronze enclosure, O pot-born sage, was a big park with various trees. Whatever udbhija, sprouting and germinating species, that is, plants and trees, etc., was in the world, was also there. There were thousands of trees with perpetual blossom, flowers, and fruits. They possessed the splendor of tender sprouts forever. They were endued with perpetual fragrance. There were thousands of trees, such as the footnote says the botanical terms for plants mentioned here are taken from MW. There are thousands of trees such as mangoes, kankolaka, a plant with waxy aromatic berries, piper cubella, lodra, simtokos, racemosa, roxeb, bakula, mimosops elengi, Karnikara, Chessia, Fistula, Lin, Simsapa, Dalvergia, Sisu, Roxab, Sirisha, Asasia, Sirisa, Devadaru, Himalayan, Cider, Nameru, Elaiocarpus Ganitrus, Punnaga Nagabhadra, Punnaga Nagabhadra, Muchakunda, Pteroparmand, Suverifolium, Kataphala, Kephal in Marathi for description. Char Damons, cloves, Takola, Pimenta, Acris, camphor trees, Pilu, Salvadora, Persica, Kakatunda, the dark, Agolochum, Salaka, number of a tall tree, name of a tall tree, Asana, the tree Terminalia tomentosa, Kachana, a plant akin to Premna spinosa, Ara, a kind of plant, Lakucha, Artocarpus lachucha, a kind of bread fruit tree, jackfruit tree, Hingula, Patala, Bignonia suaviolens, tree bearing trumpet flowers, Phalini, a species of plant, Priangu, twisted ficus oppositifolia, Ganica, Sakuranda, name of a plant. Bandhu Jivha, Pentapetis Ponacea, a plant with red flower. Pomegranates, Ashwakarna, the tree Vatica roberta has leaves like horses' ears. Hastikarna, Butea frondosa, Champaka, the Champaka tree, Chapta in Marathi. Kanakadruma, a thorn apple, and many such plants like Charia sophora, Euthika, a kind of jasmine. Talaparni, Anethum graveolens, Tulasi, the holy basil plant. Shadaphala, Ficus glomerata or coconut tree. Palmyras, Tamala, Hintala, a variety of palm. Data palms, Sacharum Sara, used for arrows. A Barbura, a species of Ocimum villosum. Sugarcane, different species of trees of Ficus genus Cordia latifolia, Terminalia bellerica, the yellow myrovalan trees. Avak pushpa, trees with blossom turned downwards. Ghontali, the jujuve tree. Varieties of plants with heavenly perfumes. The marking nut plants. Khadira, acacia, chatechu. Shakhota, Trophies aspera, sandal trees, aloe wood trees. Kalaskandha, Diospyros, Embryopteris, tamarind trees, banyan trees. Varieties of Resmosa, Terminalia arjuna, Ficus religiosa, Sami trees, Dhruva trees, Ruchaka, the citron trees, Kutaja, Rhytia, Antidocenterica, Saptaparna, Alstonia scholaris, Kritamala trees, Cassia fistula, Capita, Feronia elephantum, Tintini, trees with sour fruits, and thousands of other trees. For the sake of causing and enhancing the romantic feelings of the goddess, the specialities of all the different blossoms were present on those trees. There were excellent trees of various heights. Within the bronze enclosure, at a distance of 7 yojanas, there was the square-shaped copper enclosure. It was 7 yojanas in height. The space in between these two is called Kalpavatika, a park of Kalpa, that is, wish-yielding tree. Those trees bore abundant fruits which were exquisite with golden outer rinds, and which had seeds like precious stones and gems emitting the fragrance of camphor. Divine yellow silk garments were the tender sprouts and shoots on their branches. Nectar was the honey, juice exuding from them, and ornaments were their flowers. There were many such glorious wish-yielding trees there. This is the second chamber named Kalpavapi or Kalpavati. Within the copper enclosure was the Nagasala, Shishasala, tin or lead enclosure. The place in the oblique direction situated in between these two extended to 7 yojanas. The park there in was Santanavati, having the same shape and features as Kalpabhapi or Kalpabhavati. The footnote says the five trees in paradise are Kalpa Vriksha, Mandara, Parijata, Santana, Hari Chandana, Yellow Sandal. There are parks or gardens of each of these celestial trees in the text. The space in between them is called Hari Chandana Vatika. It is of the same shape and features as Kalpavati and was full of fruits and flowers. In all these enclosures, the arrangement of doorways, gopuras, and the crowns on their tops was as before. The measurement of the openings in the gopura and that of every doorway and door panels was also the same as before. Within the brass enclosure, Arakuta, if the reading Naga Salasya is taken, the lid tin enclosure, and 7 yojanas from it was the enclosure made of 5 metals, and it was of the same size and shape as the previous one. The space in between them is called Mandara Druma Vatika, a garden of Mandara trees. Within the enclosure of 5 metals and 7 yojanas from it, it is said was the enclosure of silver endowed with all the characteristic features mentioned before. The space in between them is called Parijata Druma Vatika, garden of Parijata trees. It was filled with divine fragrance and it shone with heavenly laden fruits and blossoms. Within the enclosure of silver was the golden enclosure. It was said to be extending to 7 yojanas. It was rendered splendid by means of doorways as before. The space in between them is said to be Kadamba Taruvatika, a garden of Kadamba nuclea, Kadamba trees. There were many divine Nipa Kadamba trees, 2 yojanas in height. Liquor flowed down from them always. Those trees sparkled on account of plenty of closely blossomed flowers. Those Nipa trees from the garden yielded a splendid liquor named Kadambari, which yields pleasure even to yoginis and which appeal to Mantrini always. They had excellent shade. They had plenty of leaves and shoots. The spaces between the trees were always filled with the humming sounds of swarms of bees eagerly desirous of fragrance. The beautiful mansion of Mantranatha was there itself, in the intermediate points of the quarters beginning with southeast, that is, southeast, southwest, northwest, and northeast. 4 lofty mansions were built by the primordial architect. The extent or area of each of them was 5 yojanas by 5 yojanas. Their situation was in the shape of a square. In the other intermediate points of quarters there was Priyaka trees, that is Nipa. This is glorified as the city of abode of Shyama. There was another city for the stay of the army in the region of Mahapadmatavi. If our residence too were to be there itself many yojanas away, it would have been impossible for Mantrini to serve Sri Devi every day. Hence, in the vicinity of the Chintamani Griha too, a mansion of Sri Mantranatha was built by the architect of Devas as well as by Maya. What person even if endowed with 2000 tongues, will be able to describe the so many innumerable good points of the mansion of Mantrini Devi in Sri Pura. The honored daughters of Matanga sport about and sing here with the lute of sweet notes, whose eyes have become reddish on account of imbibing the tinge called Kadambari. Agastya inquired, "Who is this sage called by the name Matanga?" The footnote says this Matanga sage is Lalita's devotee and is different from one of in we are referred to in PE. How is that? How is it that his daughters perpetually serve Mantrani Natha, though they are lazy and slow due to intoxication by means of liquor? Hayagriva said, "There was a great ascetic, a mass of austerities, as it were, named Matanga. He was rich. He was richly endowed with great prowess. He was keenly interested even in creating a world. By means of his intellect, invigorated by the power of penance, he could press his power of command into service everywhere. His son Matanga, of courageous mind, propitiated Mudrini, the deity having the signet ring. Mantrinaika, by means of severe austerities. On being served for a long time by the son of sage Matanga, Mantrini went over to him and commanded him, "Choose your boon." Matanga, the most excellent one among the sages, the storehouse of penance, said to Shyamalambika, who manifested herself before him. Matanga, the great sage, prayed, "O goddess, merely by remembering you all the siddhis, beginning with anima, minuteness, and all other glorious assets and powers have been realized by me. O mother, in all the three worlds there is nothing which I have yet to attain, because I have realized all desires and I have been fortunate enough to remember your activities always in my memory. Still, your presence here shall not be fruitless. I shall request for only this, O mother, fulfill this boon." Formerly I had intimate association with Himavan, being friendly with him and cracking jokes with him. Playful and haughty, he swaggered with words improper to be uttered. "I am the father of Gauri," so boasted he. That statement was not liked by me because he had more of good things in him. When two friends have the same quality and position, and if one of them gets something more for any reason, it is natural for the other to covet the same. Though I have realized all my desires, yet, O Mantrini Natha, I have performed penance to get the glory of being the father of Gauri. Hence, be my daughter. Thereby and undoubtedly you will become well known through my name." On hearing these words uttered by Matanga, the great sage, she said, "So be it," and vanished. The sage became pleased. In the course of a dream, sage gave the great sage Matanga, with great joy, a bunch of tamala flowers as ornaments for the years. Due to the power of that dream, the wife of Matanga, named Siddhimati, conceived Laghushyama in her womb. Since she was born of him, she is glorified as Matangi. She was called Laghu Shyama because Shyama was her root cause. Crores and crores of beautiful daughters of Matanga, along with the groups of Laghu Shyama, Mahashyama, and Matangi, attained the status of subsidiary Shaktis, and they serve Priya Kapriya Mantrini, fond of Kadamba, that is Noklia Kadamba. Thus, the origin of daughters of Matanga has been mentioned. O pot-born sage, so also the seven chambers, the enclosures made of iron, etc., are mentioned.